Where were you?
I had to go to the bathroom. Why are your sleeves rolled up?
Why is your shirt a different color? Are you the thing? Hey Aficionados, today we are looking at John Carpenter's The Thing, a 1982 horror film starring Kurt Russell and Keith David.
And Wilford Brimley, apparently, which I didn't know until I was doing some research afterwards.
Yeah, Wilford Brimley, the diabetes guy. So a varied and star-studded cast.
So yeah, this film basically is about a group of scientists. I believe they're in the Antarctic, and this alien creature stumbles upon their facility, and basically this creature can mimic whatever it touches, whatever it consumes. They're worried about it getting back to civilization, so the whole time they're trying to figure out who may be the thing and to basically destroy it before it can make it back to civilization, before it can infect more people and the world. This movie is actually a reimagining, it's not really a remake, but of the 1951 movie, The Thing, from Another World, which we actually just reviewed.
But yeah, just telling from the plot there, you can see how it lends itself to a lot of intrigue and paranoia, which I think is really the main theme of this film. Really, the entire thing is just filled with suspense. You as the viewer are unsure who's the thing. The characters are obviously unsure. There's a lot of, I don't even know if you could call it dramatic irony, because we never really know something that the characters don't. So it's actually a really great example of immersive filmmaking, where you are right there with the characters, just as confused and horrified as they are.
You basically are playing detective. You're trying to figure out who may be the thing right along with the characters, right along with whoever else you're watching the movie with. So a very fun movie to experience for the first time.
Also horrifying.
Absolutely.
The detective aspect is very entertaining, but at the same time, it really is just a dread-inducing film, which is aided very heavily by the special effects.
Yeah, the special effects for this movie pretty much stood out the most to me over anything else in the entire film, just because they were so well done. To me, this might be the best example of practical effects being used effectively in a movie ever. It might be the best example of practical effects in a movie. Some of the scenes in particular that stand out and pretty iconic. I knew these scenes before I even seen the movie because of how iconic they are, and that would be like the CPR scene where they're giving the guy the CPR and his chest opens up and he bites his hands off. The other scene is obviously the Siberian Husky scene where like the face opens up. It's just so gory and really just bloody and convincing looking, and just it makes you want to look away from it, to be honest.
This film is actually one of the specific reasons why I'm more partial to practical effects than CGI, because this film really gives you that visceral sense of disgust that really watching a CGI film, at least for me, has never really done. So for example, during that Siberian Husky scene, there's a part where the thing shoots all of these tendrils out and they start wrapping themselves around the other dogs. I don't even know how they did that without CGI, but it looks real. I mean, there are physical tendrils moving around, and it's absolutely horrifying. Even with some of the special effects, it looks like they're using real animal intestines and animal blood. You almost feel bad for the actors who have to interact with these things. Another thing that stands out to me are some of the performances, particularly Kurt Russell. I absolutely love Kurt Russell. Him as Snake Plissken in Escape from New York, which is another Carpenter film. Absolutely great. But really, he's great in any of Carpenter's films. He just does a great job of being that cynical everyman. You know what I mean?
A little bit of a badass in almost all of his roles, too. It just seems like they had a really good working relationship, and like Carpenter really knew how to write for him. So another one of the performances that stood out to me in this movie was Keith David's performance. He just gave a really intense portrayal of his character. A lot of the scenes that he's in with Kurt Russell, and they have this back and forth a lot of the times where they're accusing each other of being the thing, and it was just really tense.
Yeah, their chemistry is really brilliant in this film. And again, Keith David has been in a lot of Carpenter films as well, so I guess he's just, again, good at writing for these two different actors.
Speaking of those two actors, we do have to mention the ending to this film. An ending that is so iconic that people still have heated debates over what it means and what is happening. At this point in the review, we're going to tell you that there's going to be a big spoiler. So if you haven't seen it yet, turn it off and go watch it. So basically the movie ends with these two characters sitting there in the snow together. The camp is burning down, the facility's burning down, everyone else is dead, the alien is dead, or so they think. And it's ambiguous about whether or not one of them is the thing.
Even to the viewer, it's ambiguous, because Keith David's character got lost in a storm, so he wasn't there when the thing was killed, and MacReady was alone after killing the thing. You really cannot be sure if they're both human, but they're both so weak that they really can do nothing to each other, so they settle into this really uneasy position where they're both basically just watching each other. And the movie just fades to black. And that fade to black is probably one of the most perfect fade to blacks I've ever seen in a film, because you just get that sense of them both slowly freezing to death. There's no peace, there's no resolution, but they have both settled into this situation where really that's their only option.
There's no happy endings in this movie, whether or not one of them's the alien, or whether or not they're both fine, because neither of them are making it out either way.
Also, you have to mention the score with this film. Absolutely brilliant. You know, typical Carpenter synth, but it goes beyond that too. There's more of a classical violin kind of thing going on, which is great for building the tension.
Even though it won a Razzie.
Yeah, apparently it won a Razzie for its score, which I have no idea why. I mean, right from the get-go, as soon as you get that opening shot of the mountains, and that dun 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 is playing, oh my god, you're just absolutely entranced.
It completely sets the tone for the rest of the film when it opens up with that score. It's just very driving and just puts you on edge.
So the score was also apparently composed by Ennio Morricone, who also did the music for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is one of our favorite films.
And probably my favorite score of any movie.
So really, kudos to him, because this score is brilliant.
And also we're talking about the opening scene of the movie and how it really set the tone for the rest of the film. Going off of that, we have to mention the cinematography in this film. That first scene where you see like the helicopter chasing the dog and shooting at it, it has this like shaky cam that's slightly shaking, helps unnerve you a little bit and put you on edge. And again, it just really helps set the tone.
Yeah, and I would say that this is the finest cinematography in any Carpenter film that I've seen. This movie, it feels like the most finely crafted of all of his films, and the cinematography aids that to me. The quality of the cinematography really aids that. The shots feel framed very purposefully. It has a very clean filming style as well. There's a lot of diversity too. You have some pretty cool tracking shots with characters walking down hallways. Again, the opening scene with the helicopter, really cool. You have very dynamic camera that's moving from close up with the people in the helicopter to having these wide panning shots of this giant Arctic landscape. Just really, really well done cinematography there.
And you can definitely see John Carpenter's attention to detail in this movie. I mean, even the sets, they're just things all over the place that you can tell were put there with like thought behind them. And just, it was a very believable setting that they were working with. And also, I think the pacing in this movie was really effective. It gets really fast-paced when it really needs to, but then it really knows how to slow down and create a nice slow burn at times as well. Very effective, and this movie flew by for me. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time, and it really had my interest the whole time.
Now, in terms of relating it to the film that it's based on, or that it's a reimagining of, it's actually interesting because the film is incredibly different. I mean, the monster is totally different. In the original film, it's like a vegetable man. Whereas in this, it's a shape-shifting monster, kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers kind of thing.
And it is more realistic to the literature that it's based off of. Also, there are some little nods to the original film here and there. Even the title sequence where it shows the Thing on the screen is a nod to the original film. Some other little things that give a little wink-wink at the original film would be the part where they go to the Norwegians' facility and they see like the thawed-out brick of ice, which is right out of the original, or the footage where the people are standing in the circle around the UFO. Again, another nod to the original.
Yeah, it's almost as if what happened at the Norwegian base are the events of the first film, but slightly reimagined, and so could be almost considered a slight sequel.
Yeah, like a continuation of the first story. And I actually get more enjoyment out of the film looking at it that way, because I think it's really cool, and it shows that John Carpenter really does appreciate the original movie and classic sci-fi horror movies like that.
So for me, one of the things I love about all of Carpenter's films is that he seems like a very politically aware person. And he always inserts little details into his movies, or he structures them thematically about issues that were contemporary to his time. But for this film, I'm feeling it's a little bit more ambiguous as to what it's trying to do. That theme of paranoia that runs through the whole thing, to me, speaks to kind of that Cold War paranoia that was going on in America at the time. Of course, this is 1982, so really the Cold War was mostly over at this point. But still, that idea of there being an intruder in the midst. Xenophobia, maybe. But there's definitely something going on in there. He's speaking to that human fear of the unknown and of something infiltrating your society and changing it from within.
So for our rating on The Thing, we're going to give this one 4.75 assimilated cells out of 5.
Diabetes.
This, to me, is a very well-crafted, excellent horror science fiction movie. Definitely one of the best, and probably one of the better movies to come out of the 80s.
It is one of the best movies in its genre you will ever see, and it is a must-see for science fiction aficionados, for horror aficionados, or for anybody who loves practical special effects in film. Also, to me, this is John Carpenter's best film, his most finely crafted film, too. And that says a lot, because he had some pretty great movies in the 80s. Of course, we know he kind of fell from grace after that, but Escape from New York, They Live, Halloween, this. So to me, this is his most finely crafted film. So if you're interested in checking out his movies, I would say this is a great one to start with, because it's almost impossible not to love it.
When you get done watching this movie, it's going to leave an imprint on you, and you're never going to forget it. So you definitely have to check this one out.
So what about you guys? Have you seen The Thing? And if so, do you think it's the best John Carpenter film? Please let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, whether it's liqueurs, movies, games, or beer,
if you're looking for reviews, you can find them right here.
See you next time.
Thanks for watching.